Well, folks, the opening insanity continues as Magnus Carlsen employs his new favorite opening weapon, that is this move h4, against one of his most elite victims yet. That is, the 3-time World Blitz champion and former number 2 classical player in the world, Alexander Grishuk, in this recent Blitz game on chess.com. Grishuk responds sensibly, e5, controlling the center. And if you're new to chess and you think that h4 is a good move for white because you keep seeing Magnus Carlsen play it, please reconsider. This is not a good move. It doesn't do a whole lot for white in the opening, but what it does apparently do is get Carlsen's opponents, even the elite ones, out of their comfort zone. So it seems to have some psychological value. c4 from Carlsen, and this is looking like a Sicilian defense with colors reversed. Knight to f6, knight to c3, and now bishop to b4. Grishuk is looking to trade off that bishop after this move, knight to f3, attacking e5. He takes on c3, giving Carlsen the doubled pawns. Carlsen captures away from the center, opening up the diagonal for the bishop. And now d6, defending the pawn. And Carlsen seizes the opportunity to play c5, ridding himself of that doubled pawn. Of course, you don't want to take on c5 as black because you're taking protection off e5, so Grishuk simply castles. Carlsen takes on d6, and after c takes d6, he does not find the best move here. What white should be playing for is control of the d5 square. The d6 pawn is backward. Black would like to push the pawn to d5. You don't want that move to happen, so you either want to attack that square or remove one of black's defenders of that square, which is why bishop g5 is the best move here. But instead, Carlsen plays g3, which would allow Grishuk to play h6, preventing bishop g5, but he instead plays an inferior move. He plays knight c6, allowing bishop g5, which Carlsen now plays. We got h6, the bishop of course removes the knight, queen takes f6, and now bishop to g2. At this point, Grishuk decides to get a little frisky with the move e4. He's going to gain some space in the center after knight to d4 and d5. However, he has placed both of his central pawns on the same color squares as his bishop, which is not the ideal thing to do. Black would much rather have a dark squared bishop in this position, but okay, Carlsen castles, and now bishop g4, trying to get some kind of activity with that bishop, but Carlsen has a nice response. He plays the move f3. Weakens his king side a little bit, g3 could become a target, but it does attack the bishop, and the bishop can't just move, or else there'll be e takes f3 with a discovered attack on the queen. So black really needs to capture on f3, which is what Grishuk does, and after e takes f3, the bishop drops back to e6. And we can see there's been a transformation of the pawn structure. Black now has an isolated pawn, which of course is a weakness, but it can be defended. He's got the bishop there, he can bring a rook there. White's not going to have any easy way to win that pawn, but Carlsen does target it right away with this move f4, opening the eyes of his bishop. Grishuk adds more protection to the pawn with a rook, and now queen to d2, connects the rooks, okay, and now bishop to f5. Grishuk has a new plan here. He's decided to try to plant that bishop on e4. Carlsen stops that for the moment by putting a rook on e1, but now queen to g6. Supports the e4 square even further and comes with an attack on g3. So Carlsen needs to deal with that. He decides to play king to f2. Look at him, already thinking about the endgame, moving his king towards the center. Bishop e4, and now if that bishop were to be captured, Grishuk would get himself a passed pawn. Carlsen doesn't want that, so he plays rook a to d1 and now f5. Now if you capture the bishop, it will be replaced with a pawn that will be protected and passed. So this is looking pretty nice for Grishuk, and black's position is a little bit better than white's here. We have queen e2 from Carlsen, preparing the move h5. He wants to give the black queen a kick. King h8, okay, the king's slightly safer there, I guess. h5, queen goes to f7, and now rook to d2. He's going to double some heavy pieces. Rook f to e8, putting the rook opposite the white queen, so there's a discovered attack threatened. Carlsen gets out of the way with queen to d1. Now he's got a rook and queen battery along the d file, and at some point there may be a tactic involving bishop takes e4, but there are no problems yet. Grishuk plays another king move, king to h7, getting the king off the back rank. Maybe that's slightly safer. Bishop to f3 from Carlsen, just improving slightly, adding defense to this pawn. Now we have knight to e7. And I don't know what Grishuk's plan was for this move. The engine actually prefers knight to a5, threatening to jump into c4. But after what Grishuk played, apparently Carlsen can equalize with the move knight c2, planning to go to e3 and target that weak d-pawn even further. But Carlsen goes wrong here. He plays a move which looks good on the surface, c4, trying to undermine the support structure for this bishop. But black has a very nice response here, which Grishuk didn't find. See if you can find black's best move in this position. It is far from obvious, and if you can spot it, you can give yourself a pat on the back. What should black play here? The best move is knight to g8, planning to reroute to f6 to simply replace the bishop on e4 if it is ever captured, and you do not want a knight hanging out on that e4 square if you are playing white. But Grishuk did not find that idea, and instead he inexplicably just gives up his whole center with the move d takes c4, which grabs a pawn, but it does allow Carlsen to liquefy the center with bishop takes e4, f takes e4, and rook takes e4. After which the position is pretty much equalized. But it doesn't stay that way for very long. In fact, on the very next move, Grishuk blunders with knight to f5. And see if you can spot the problem with this move. See if you can identify the single reason why this move is losing for black. So hopefully you noticed that this knight is on the same diagonal as the black king. So that after Carlsen's move rook takes e8, if Grishuk were to make the obvious recapture, rook takes e8, there would be queen to c2, pinning the knight to the king, attacking it with two pieces, and threatening g4. Now, you could try g6 to defend, but after h takes g6 check, you have to take with the king, because this knight needs two pieces protecting it, but then there's knight takes f5, and after queen takes, rook d6 check. This king can only move backwards, and you're going to lose your queen. So Grishuk, realizing the trouble he had got himself into, decides not to recapture that rook. Instead, he takes out the knight on d4. But after Carlsen retreats his rook, he has emerged the exchange up. There is rook takes d2 check, queen takes d2, and queen takes h5. So at least Grishuk gets to grab an extra pawn for the exchange, but it's not enough. Carlsen's rook and queen are just way too active here. He plays queen d5, targeting some pawns. Not afraid of the queen check on h2, attacking g3 because he has queen to g2 to block and defend, after which the knight is attacked, so queen to h5, Carlsen grabs a pawn on b7, Grishuk infiltrates with queen to d1, looks scary, but there's no problems, we got queen to d5, attacking the knight and pinning it to the king again, queen d2 check, Carlsen blocks, queen d4 check, king g2, the knight is again being threatened, so it's defended with g6. Rook e4 hitting the queen, it goes to d5, pinning the rook to the king, so king h2 gets out of the pin. The c4 pawn is attacked by both the queen and the rook, and if you were to try to defend it with knight to d6, then the rook could infiltrate the 7th rank. That is not good. So Grishuk plays h5 to give his king a little square there, but this means Carlsen gets to grab the pawn. There's a queen check, the rook blocks. Such wonderful coordination between the rook and the queen on these light squares. And now queen to d1. I don't know. Maybe he wants to get into f3 or g4 once this rook moves. g3 is the weakest point in Carlsen's position, so he's going to have to be careful. He plays queen c7 check so that after the king moves, he can centralize the queen on e5. And this move comes with a very powerful threat. See if you can spot it. If it was white's turn to move, what would that threat be? The threat, of course, is queen to h8. That is checkmate, my friends. So Grishuk, not being one to miss a checkmate in one move, plays king to h7 to prevent that. Now queen to e4. King goes back to h6. Will there be a repetition? Oh, hell no. Carlsen plays rook to f2, apparently just to get out of the view of the black queen. We have a5 from Grishuk, which allows Carlsen to execute a double threat. Queen to e5, attacking the pawn, while threatening something much more serious, which he should be able to spot very quickly. And it's a threat that Carlsen has an opportunity to execute after Grishuk's next move, queen to g4, attacking g3, but unfortunately, neglecting the safety of his king, forgetting about a move that we looked at only a few moments ago, queen to h8, which is checkmate. So there we have it, folks. Carlsen adding yet another elite player to the list of players he's defeated with this crazy h4 move, which is becoming one of his favorite opening weapons, which seems to be surprisingly tough for even elite players to deal with. They just can't seem to secure a lasting advantage. But then again, they are playing Carlsen, so if there ever was a don't try it at home moment, this would be it. So, thank you for watching, everyone. Please subscribe to the channel for continuing coverage of Magnus Carlsen's most epic performances coming your way soon.